The metallic corridors of Station Nexus 7 hung in the void above Nevada like a steel prayer, its windows reflecting Earth's blue curve against an indifferent cosmos. Inside the medical bay, 6 security drones formed a semicircle around a man who had no business being there, their targeting lasers painting red dots across his chest. Marcus Cole stood perfectly still, gray maintenance coveralls dusty from the ventilation shafts, holding a simple glass bottle filled with pale liquid that caught the harsh fluorescent light. His dark hair fell across his forehead, 3 days of stubble shadowing a jaw, set with the kind of quiet determination that came from having already lost everything that mattered. On the biobed behind the wall of hovering machines, a small figure lay motionless. Princess Nova's translucent blue skin had faded to the color of shallow water, her completely hairless head turned toward the viewport, where distant stars burned with cold indifference. The monitors surrounding her displayed vital signs that had been declining for 14 days each number, a countdown to a death that would shatter peace treaties spanning 3 sectors of known space. Lysandra stood between her daughter and the chaos, one hand resting on a plasma pistol, holstered at her hip. The alien queen's violet skin seemed to glow with inner raw radiance even through her exhaustion, long purple hair falling loose around shoulders that had carried the weight of a crown through war and exile. Her form-fitting suit bore the insignia of House Veyron, though most believed that House had been destroyed 3 years ago. She turned now to face Commander Draxus, her eyes flashing with dangerous light as she spoke, words that cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Step away from my daughter." The reptilian officer's scales shifted from military gray to agitated amber, his clawed hand tightening on the rifle slung across his chest. 12 xenobiologists from 8 different worlds stood frozen in various postures of professional helplessness, their sophisticated instruments having failed to solve a mystery that defied every scan and analysis. Dr. Varen's crystalline features reflected the biobed's monitors, his 6 fingers drumming an anxious rhythm against his data pad as he watched the confrontation unfold. Marcus took a single step forward, the bottle steady in his weathered hands. Every eye in the room locked onto him, this nobody janitor who had somehow bypassed security protocols and appeared in their crisis like a ghost materializing from the station's hidden spaces. The drone's targeting systems whined as they recalibrated, tracking his movement with mechanical precision. "Your Majesty, I know what she needs." The words hung in the sanitized air, impossibly calm, carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Lysandra's hand moved away from her weapon, violet eyes widening as she truly looked at this human for the first time. Something flickered across her face, recognition, or memory, or perhaps prophecy fulfilled before she turned back to the dying child, who represented the last hope for peace. The scene froze in that moment of impossible tension, then dissolved into darkness as the words appeared in the void 48 hours earlier. Texas dirt still clung to Marcus Cole's boots 3 years after he'd left red clay from a cemetery outside Austin, where he'd buried his heart along with his 7-year-old daughter. The maintenance closet on Station Nexus 7 smelled like industrial cleaner and recycled air, but when he closed his eyes at 3 in the morning, he could still smell the honeysuckle that had grown outside Emma's hospital window at Houston Memorial. His hands moved through the familiar ritual without conscious thought, measuring milk powder into the bottle with the precision of a combat medic, checking field dressings, adding local honey, a touch of vanilla extract, that pinch of cinnamon Emma had insisted made it taste like Texas summers. The photograph in his breast pocket had worn soft at the edges from 3 years of touching Emma Rose Cole's gap-toothed smile, captured in a school picture taken 6 months before the crimson fever stole her away. Her last words echoed in the small space as they did every night. "Promise me, Daddy, find the purple angel and help her." He thought it was delirium, then the pandemic burning through her small body as he held her hand in that Houston ICU. The doctors had called it unprecedented. 50,000 American children infected across 12 colonies and 3 continents, their immune systems attacking themselves in ways medical science couldn't explain or stop. Emma had lasted 14 days, which was longer than most. Toward the end, she'd spoken of angels and promises of a lady with purple skin who sang in a language that tasted like starlight. Marcus had dismissed it as fever dreams until 6 months ago, when he'd seen Queen Lysandra's image on the station news feeds and felt his world tilt sideways. The bottle warmed in his hands now as he activated the heating element, watching the milk reach that perfect temperature Emma had called just right for hugs. He'd kept this ritual every night since her death, unable to stop making bottles no one would drink, unable to let go of the one connection he still had to the child who'd given his life meaning. The station psychologist had words for it. Marcus had stopped going to those sessions. His quarters were 7 meters square, standard crew housing, for maintenance personnel, decorated with nothing but Emma's photo and his old Army Ranger uniform hanging in the closet like the ghost of who he used to be. Staff Sergeant Marcus Cole, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 on Titan Moon during the Colonial Wars, recipient of the Medal of Honor for actions he still had nightmares about. He'd been the ghost of Kandahar, the medic who could slip through enemy lines to pull out wounded brothers, who could keep a man alive with nothing but pressure and prayer while calling in evac under fire. Then Emma died and the warrior became a janitor, because what was the point of saving strangers when you couldn't save your own child? The station's night cycle hummed around him, 3,000 souls from 40 worlds sleeping or working or dreaming in this artificial habitat that orbited Earth like humanity's promise that they belonged among the stars. Marcus had taken the job here because it was as far from Texas as he could get without leaving human space entirely, because anonymous maintenance work required nothing from him except showing up and keeping his head down. He cleaned corridors and fixed air recyclers and made milk for ghosts, and that was enough. Until 14 days ago, when the news feeds lit up with emergency bulletins about Princess Nova. The medical bay occupied the station's central hub, a sprawling complex of examination rooms and surgical theaters designed to handle xenobiology from across known space. Marcus had cleaned those floors 100 times invisible in his gray coveralls, while brilliant minds discussed impossible cases. He'd learned to move like he had in combat present, but unseen a skill that translated surprisingly well from war zones to civilian life. Tonight he mopped the corridor outside the main examination room, where 15 of the galaxy's finest xenobiologists argued in a cacophony of translated languages. Through the transparent aluminum door, he could see the small blue figure on the biobed, Princess Nova, 4 years old and dying by degrees that medical science couldn't explain or prevent. She'd stopped eating 14 days ago, stopped responding to stimulation, stopped doing anything but lying motionless while her vital signs slowly declined. The debates raged on about psychological trauma and cellular rejection, but Marcus noticed what they didn't see from his position in the corner. The way the infant's gaze kept drifting toward the feeding equipment, not with hunger, but with profound sadness that seemed impossible for someone so young to carry. The way her small blue fingers occasionally reached for something that wasn't there. The way her breathing seemed more like resignation than respiration. He'd seen that look before. In Emma. The memory surfaced, unbidden Emma in her Houston hospital bed 3 days before the end, refusing the bottles the nurses tried to give her. The medical staff had assumed it was the fever, some physiological rejection of nutrition as her system shut down. But Marcus had known different. His daughter hadn't been refusing food. She'd been refusing comfort without comfort's context, nourishment, without the ritual that made nourishment meaningful. It wasn't the milk, it was the meaning. Princess Nova's readings displayed on monitors visible through the door. Cellular ATP at 34%, neural activity within normal ranges for her species. No toxins, no infections, no physical explanation for why a healthy child was slowly fading away. Dr. Varen's crystalline form moved between displays, 6-fingered hands, gesturing as he spoke to the assembled experts. The words filtered through technical medical terminology that meant we have no idea what's wrong. But Marcus knew, and he'd also started noticing something else. Commander Draxius spent too much time near the medication storage. The reptilian officer's scales shifted through agitated colors when the medical team discussed treatment protocols. His questions always seemed aimed at understanding how much time Nova had left rather than how to save her. Marcus's combat instincts, rusty but not dead, had started pinging warnings. Trust no one protocol. Master Sergeant William Hayes had drilled that into every ranger under his command during the Titan Moon deployment. Watch the quiet ones, Cole. The loudest patriots sometimes make the biggest traitors. Hayes was 7 years dead now, buried in a crater on Titan, alongside 47 other rangers who'd walked into an ambush that shouldn't have been possible. Marcus carried his mentor's dog tags alongside Emma's photo, 2 talismans of failure and loss. But Hayes's lessons remained, and those lessons said something was wrong beyond a child's unexplained illness. Marcus had spent his off hours reviewing security footage, using old intelligence training, and newer janitor access codes that let him move through the station's digital infrastructure almost as invisibly as he moved through its physical corridors. The patterns emerged slowly. Draxus accessing medication storage 6 times over 14 days. Draxus in private communication with parties whose identities were heavily encrypted. Draxus whose military service record showed 3 suspicious gaps that aligned with Shadow Council operations. The Shadow Council. Even the name carried weight in certain circles, whispered rumors of a military-industrial complex that spanned 12 planets and saw peace treaties as threats to trillion-dollar weapons contracts. Marcus had encountered their fingerprints before back on Titan Moon in the coincidences that had led his Ranger unit into that fatal ambush. Hayes had been investigating, something had found evidence, had died before he could share what he'd learned. But he'd managed to press a data chip into Marcus's hand in those final moments, encrypted files that Marcus had carried for 7 years without knowing what to do with them. Until now. Until he'd seen that look in Princess Nova's eyes and recognized Commander Draxus's patterns and understood that some battles needed fighting, even when you'd given up on being a soldier. The medical bay's debate reached a crescendo. Dr. Varen's voice carried clearly now as he addressed the assembled experts as electromagnetic frustration crackling through his translated words. There is nothing physiologically wrong. Every cellular analysis shows perfect health, yet she continues to refuse sustenance. Commander Draxus's response came smooth and cold. Perhaps the child is simply being difficult. Royal offspring are known for theatrical tendencies. Through the door, Marcus saw Queen Lysandra's reaction. Her violet skin flushed darker eyes flashing crimson, but she said nothing. The alien queen stood like a statue near the viewport, beautiful and untouchable, and utterly alone in her desperation. Marcus made his decision. He returned to his quarters, retrieved the bottle he'd made earlier, and spoke to Emma's photograph as he had every night for 3 years. I think I found her sweetheart, your purple angel, and I think she needs what you needed. Then he picked up the bottle and headed for the medical bay with the kind of calm that came from having nothing left to lose. The station's corridors at 2:47 a.m. held that particular emptiness of deep night shift. Marcus moved through the shadows utilizing blind spots in the camera system he'd memorized during months of invisible maintenance work. 3 security drones patrolled the route to medical, but their patterns were predictable gaps in coverage that existed because efficiency always created exploitable windows. SEER training from Fort Bragg. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. The Army had taught him to move through hostile territory, and a space station at night was just another form of hostile territory if you approached it correctly. The medical bay's main entrance required authorization he didn't have, but the maintenance access provided an alternate route through equipment storage. Marcus slipped through the narrow corridor, moving with economical grace, the bottle staying level in his hands. The storage room connected to the main examination area through a door meant for equipment carts. Marcus eased it open and stepped through. 6 security drones reacted instantly, red targeting lasers painting his chest. Somewhere an alarm began its shrill warning. Doctor. Varen spun from his display's crystalline features reflecting shock. Commander Draxus's hand dropped to his rifle with practiced speed. But it was Queen Lysandra who commanded the room as she turned from the viewport. She was incandescent violet skin glowing with inner light eyes, holding depths that reminded Marcus of nebulae and distant galaxies. When she looked at him, really looked at him, something shifted. Recognition flashed across her face like lightning. Gray shirt, sad brown eyes, Texas bearing. Let him approach. Started to protest, but Marcus stood perfectly still, holding the bottle. Former Staff Sergeant Marcus Cole, combat medic, 75th Ranger Regiment, service number 547-89-3421. The Ghost of Kandahar. Varen's features shifted. I read about you. The Medal of Honor citation. That was another life. Marcus's voice stayed level. I'm maintenance now, but I've been watching your patient, and I think I know what she needs. Commander Draxus stepped forward, scales shifting to aggressive amber. This is a protocol violation. Security detain this man. I am the protocol here, Commander. Lysandra's voice carried absolute authority. Stand down. The drones maintained their targeting but held fire. Marcus moved toward the biobed where Princess Nova lay motionless. Up close, the resemblance to Emma's last days struck him like a physical blow. The same stillness beyond sleep, the same sense of a light, dimming the same indefinable sadness. He knelt beside the bio bed, bringing himself to the small girl's eye level. His weathered hands held the bottle steady as he spoke directly to Nova, ignoring the assembled experts and their sophisticated instruments. Hey there, little warrior. Name's Marcus. Got something special for you. Nova's eyes flickered, the first voluntary movement anyone had seen in days. Her pupils tracked toward the bottle, toward the man holding it, towards something that finally registered as real. My baby girl Emma, she called this love in a bottle, made from warm, whole milk, from Texas honey, vanilla cinnamon. She said it tasted like home when she was scared. The room held its collective breath as Nova's small, blue fingers twitched, reaching. Marcus positioned the bottle closer, tipped it so the liquid caught the light. The smell intensified, honey and vanilla, and that indefinable quality that came from something made with intention rather than synthesized in laboratory equipment. You've been sad too, haven't you? Missing something these machines can't give you. Missing the part that says someone cares. Nova's hand closed around the bottle's base with sudden, desperate strength. Her dark eyes locked onto Marcus's with intensity that reminded him why this girl was royalty. Then she lifted the bottle to her lips and drank. Color began to spread through her translucent blue skin like dawn breaking over an alien horizon. The monitors erupted in cascading alerts as her vital signs shifted: ATP levels, a rising neural activity, spiking every reading that had been declining for 14 days, suddenly reversing course. Nova drank in small, determined gulps, the bottle emptying into biological mystery that processed it like Emma had. Dr. Varon stared at his displays with the expression of someone watching fundamental understanding rewrite itself. This is impossible. There's nothing in that bottle that wasn't in our formulations. But not comforting, Queen Lysandra said softly. Tell me, doctor, when you were young, did your mother feed you with machines? Nova finished the bottle and made a soft sound that transcended species barriers. Contentment. Relief. Then she spoke for the first time in days, her voice weak but clear. More. Like Emma promised. Every person froze. Marcus felt the universe tilt as he tried to process words that shouldn't make sense. How do you know my daughter's name? Nova's dark eyes met his. She told Mama. In the white room with beeping machines. About her daddy who makes love taste like Texas. The words detonated understanding and impossibility. Marcus looked up at Queen Lysandra, saw her violet face overcome with emotion too complex to name, saw recognition and guilt and hope cascading across features that had forgotten vulnerability. Houston Memorial Hospital. Ward 7. 3 years ago. Lysandra's voice barely qualified as whisper. The Crimson Fever pandemic. We brought medical ships. I was there in the ICU. I held your daughter's hand while she died. Memory flooded Marcus with images he'd never seen but could imagine perfectly. A figure in hazmat suit moving between beds where American children fought their final battles. Finding one small blonde girl whose monitors were counting down to flatline, who spoke with the clarity that sometimes came in final hours. Emma's voice in memory. Find my daddy, Marcus Cole, 75th Rangers. He's so sad. He makes love taste like honey. Purple Angel, promise you'll find him. Lysandra in the memory. I promise. Promise, brave one. I'll find him. I'll help him. Emma's final words. Tell him it tastes like home. Back in the present, Marcus knelt with his world rewriting itself. Tears ran freely. Queen Lysandra's hand came to rest on his shoulder, violet skin warmed through gray coveralls. I searched 47 American space stations over 3 years. Your discharge papers were buried under Black Ops classifications. You were a ghost, until I took a janitor job here. Marcus's voice cracked. Until your daughter started dying the way mine did. Dr. Varon's urgent voice cut through. Your Majesty, we have a serious problem. The monitors showed toxin alerts, now warnings that hadn't triggered before because the substance had been carefully masked. Neural inhibitor 7, military grade. Someone had been poisoning Princess Nova for 14 days. Every head turned toward Commander Draxus. The reptilian officer's scales had gone perfectly still. His hand hovered near his rifle. Marcus's combat instincts roared back to full life. He'd been right about Draxus. The commander's voice came cold. You've left me no choice. Then Draxus drew his weapon and plasma fire erupted. The first bolt destroyed the main control panel. Blast doors began descending. The assembled xenobiologists scattered. Dr. Varen lunged for a communicator. Marcus moved on pure instinct, grabbed Lysandra and pulled her down behind the biobed as plasma bolts cracked overhead. Nova made a small, frightened sound. 6 mercenaries burst through the maintenance entrance, contractors in tactical gear. Not station security. Shadow Council operatives. Get Nova to safety, Marcus shouted. He grabbed a fallen plasma pistol, checked the charge automatically. Dr. Varen emergency channel to station command. Another plasma burst vaporized diagnostic equipment. One of the xenobiologists went down screaming. The blast doors were 3/4 closed, now sealing them in. Lysandra lifted Nova from the biobed, moving with trained efficiency toward the emergency exit Dr. Varen indicated. But mercenaries cut off escape routes with coordinated fire. 3 shots hit the emergency exit panel, fusing it shut. Marcus made a snap decision. He fired twice at the medical laser array overhead. Precision instruments exploded in white vapor smoke, flooding the bay. Then he was moving in combat crouch, closing distance, while contractors struggled with sudden visual interference. Close quarters combat from Ranger School. First mercenary went down with nerve strike before he realized Marcus had closed. Second took kneecap strike that dropped him screaming. Marcus grabbed a pulse carbine, used the falling body as cover while firing twice more. 2 down, 4 left, plus Draxus. Terrible odds. Acceptable. Get to the tunnels. Marcus's voice carried command authority. Doctor, get them out. Dr. Varen grabbed Lysandra's hand and ran for the maintenance entrance, while Marcus provided covering fire. Equipment exploded around them, the medical bay becoming lethal light show. Marcus felt the impact before processing it, pulse round, catching his left shoulder and spinning him. Training turned the spin into roll behind surgical equipment. He came up firing, caught a 3rd mercenary center mass. 3 down, 3 left, plus Draxus. Lysandra and Nova were through the maintenance entrance now. Marcus had bought them escape. Now he had to buy them time. He keyed the plasma pistol to overload, threw it toward the remaining mercenaries, and dove for cover. The pistol detonated in miniature sun that caught 2 contractors. Their screams were brief. 5 down, 1 plus Draxus. The pulse carbine showed 30% charge. Marcus's shoulder bled, but nerve damage was minimal. He'd survived worse. Draxus's voice echoed through the ruined bay. Very impressive, Cole, but you're bleeding and outgunned. Surrender now. Marcus didn't waste breath responding. He was moving, working toward the maintenance entrance, carbine raised. The last mercenary tried to cut him off, but close quarters belonged to Marcus. The mercenary died, not knowing what killed him. Marcus reached the entrance, used Hayes's old override codes, and the door opened enough to slip through before emergency protocols sealed it. Then he was in the maintenance tunnels, following sounds of hurried movement, his wounded shoulder screaming with each movement, but pain was just information. He caught up at an intersection. Dr. Varen was determining fastest route to safety. Lysandra spun at his approach, plasma pistol aimed before recognizing him. You came. Always. Where to Dr. Section 7 Delta? Abandoned storage, heavy doors separate life support. We can seal in and call for help. They ran. Marcus covered their retreat despite his wound. Behind them, alarms screamed, Draxus ordering station-wide lockdown. The tunnels branched and rebranched, but Marcus navigated by muscle memory from months of janitorial work. Plasma fire from behind announced pursuit. Marcus stopped at a junction, braced the carbine, fired 3-round bursts back. Someone screamed. Good. Every second of caution bought seconds of escape. They reached Section 7 Delta's entrance. Marcus's override codes worked the door, grinding open. Beyond lay darkness and stale air, but also safety, inside. Lock it behind us. The storage area held abandoned equipment and mothballed supplies. Emergency lights flickered on, revealing defensible space. Dr. Varen sealed the blast door. Nova was shaking in Lysandra's arms, 4-year-old mind struggling with violence it shouldn't have witnessed. Marcus collapsed against the wall, let his head fall back, focused on breathing through pain. His shoulder felt like someone had driven hot spike through it. Acceptable. He'd fought through worse. You're bleeding, Lysandra moved to his side. Let me see. Field dressing in my right pocket. Her fingers found the packet, applied it with professional efficiency. She'd done this before the Queen knew combat wounds. The dressing went on, painful but necessary. Thank you. For Nova. for not running. Marcus forced his eyes open. My daughter asked me to find you. I'm not about to fail her twice. Emma. Lysandra's voice broke. She was so brave. She made me promise things I didn't understand. How did she know? No answer existed, so Marcus didn't try. Instead, he looked at Nova, saw Emma's face and her features despite alien physiology. Both were children. Both deserved better. The blast door shuddered. Draxus's voice filtered through. Cole, your majesty, you're trapped. Come out now for clean deaths. Marcus checked his pulse carbine. 15% charge. Maybe 20 shots. Against how many mercenaries? The math was unforgiving. But math had never stopped Rangers. How long can you hold them? Deviron asked. Long enough. Marcus's certainty was absolute. Long enough for you to call for help. Long enough for Nova to be somewhere else when it ends. I'm not leaving you. Lysandra's eyes flashed crimson. Your daughter needs a mother more than I need company. Marcus tried to stand, made it with the wall's help. But promise me something. When this is over, if Nova survives, you make sure she knows Emma mattered. That her life meant something. Emma already changed things, Lysandra whispered. She led me to you. The blast door shuddered again, cutting torches following. 4 minutes maybe. Then the door would breach and Marcus would fight his last fight. But Nova would live. That mattered. Then the small blue child spoke from her corner, voice carrying ancient wisdom in 4-year-old innocence. Mama, this is Daddy Marcus from your dreams, isn't it? The one who tastes like home. Everything stopped. Marcus looked at Lysandra, saw her transform through shock and recognition. I've been dreaming of you for 3 years, every night since Emma died. A man with sad eyes who knew how to make fear taste like hope. Nova pulled something from beneath her gown, small crystal pendant, pulsing with inner light. I can help. I can call the fleet. Marcus felt something fundamental shift as Nova pressed the crystal to her chest and spoke words in musical alien language, voice amplified beyond anything a 4-year-old should produce. The pendant flared brilliant purple light, flooding the storage room. Across the galaxy, 200 Veyron warships received a signal they'd been waiting 3 years to hear. The air had called. Assembly was invoked. And they came. The cutting torches died. Through the door, Draxus's voice carried new confusion. What did she just do? Dr. Veyron's scanner beeped urgent warnings. Your Majesty, that was quantum-encoded broadcast on Veyron military frequencies. Every warship that survived the Exodus just received assembly protocol. How many ships, Marcus asked? 200. Lysandra's whisper carried weight. Scattered across 40 worlds, waiting for this moment. How long until they arrive? 22 hours. They'll come from every corner of space, maximum velocity. Marcus processed timeline against present circumstances. Help was coming, but coming slow. They needed to survive until tomorrow. Dr. Veyron was already working terminal. I can trigger life support cascade failure warning. Emergency protocols will deploy response teams. Draxus will have to commit forces or risk station-wide asphyxiation. Do it. The alarm triggered with perfect timing, klaxons screaming, emergency lights, flooding quarters red. Response teams deployed toward the engineering core to address crisis that didn't exist but felt real. Draxus's voice over intercom carried fury. This is false alarm. All security maintain position. But protocols were protocols. Half his forces peeled off despite orders leaving holes in coverage that 3 desperate people could exploit. Marcus moved first, bursting from storage with carbine braced against wounded shoulder, acquiring targets through muscle memory. 2 mercenaries guarding the corridor went down before processing the threat. He kept moving, flowing from target to target, brain calculating angles and exposures, like it had never stopped being Ranger. Lysandra followed with Nova's secure and plasma pistol in freehand, shooting with precision that spoke of resistance fighting. Together, they cleared the corridor in seconds. Dr. Veyron brought up rear with liberated carbine shooting with surprising competence for medical professional. They hit main corridor at full sprint. 3 more mercenaries appeared ahead. Marcus dropped a slide carbine, spitting rounds under their return fire, watched 2 go down before his charge ran dry. He threw the empty weapon close distance, with the 3rd drove his combat knife into the gap between helmet and chest plate. The blade found arteries Hayes had taught him to target. Lysandra stared at him with something between admiration and alarm. You fought like that with shoulder wound, Ranger Creed. Marcus retrieved his knife, kept moving. Never quit, never surrender. Docking Bay 7 appeared ahead, blast doors sealed but accessible. Marcus keyed Hayes' chip into panel-held breath, while 7-year-old Codes worked, exhaled when doors ground open. Beyond lay organized chaos, 24 shuttles in various maintenance states. Marcus scanned for best option, found diplomatic courier ship radiating speed and minimal armor. That one, fast light quantum communicator for diplomatic traffic. It's registered to Arcturian ambassador, Dr. Varen noted. Let's add theft to their list of problems. They crossed 20 meters expecting ambush at every step. Maintenance crews were focused on work, oblivious to armed people moving with purpose. They reached the ramp, started up. Then Draxus figured out the distraction. His forces converged with coordinated precision, appearing from multiple access points. Plasma bolts and pulse rounds filled air, forcing Marcus and company behind landing gear. Marcus returned fire, counting rounds, calculating odds, accepting the math had finally turned unsustainable. They were pinned, outnumbered, out of time. Then the bay's main doors exploded inward. The blast vaporized bulkhead section, depressurized the space before emergency force fields activated. Through the gap came figures in powered armor, moving with veteran confidence, weapons targeting Draxus's forces with lethal precision. Station security. But how? These were night shift personnel veterans who'd received encrypted distress signal 30 minutes ago. The team leader's visor retracted, revealing weathered face. Marcus recognized. Chief Morrison, former Marine Corps engineer, 68 years old, too stubborn to retire. Heard you could use evac call. Morrison gestured at his team. We're 23 veterans who think poisoning kids needs stopping. Marcus felt something break in his chest, relief and gratitude too large for words. The security team formed perimeter while Marcus and company boarded. Lysandra carried Nova up ramp, Dr. Varen following. Marcus paused at ramp's base. Thank you doesn't cover this. Then don't say it. Morrison's smile carried decades of wisdom. Just stop these bastards. For your girl. The courier ship's engines spun up as Marcus sealed hatch, Lysandra already in pilot seat. Dr. Varen strapped Nova into emergency couch. Through viewports, Marcus watched Morrison's team holding line while the courier lifted from cradle. Then they were in open space, station Nexus 7 falling away, acceleration crushing Marcus into seat. Lysandra flew like someone racing death, pushing engines past limits, quantum drive charging. 4 hours until they could broadcast evidence. 4 hours until Shadow Council's conspiracy became public record. 4 hours until 50,000 dead children meant something beyond tragedy. Marcus closed his eyes, felt unconsciousness pulling. His last thought before darkness was Emma's voice, soft and certain. Keep your promise, Daddy. He would, whatever it cost. Marcus woke to the smell of medical nanites and recycled air, his shoulder wrapped in synthetic tissue that pulsed with accelerated healing rhythm. The courier ship's medical bay was barely larger than closet, but Dr. Varen had worked miracles with limited equipment. Through the bulkhead, he heard quantum drive's distinctive hum, felt the ship cutting through space at velocities that turned star systems into blur. How long, he asked, voice rough. 47 minutes. Dr. Varen's crystalline features reflected concern. You lost a liter of blood. The nanites are rebuilding tissue, but you need rest. Marcus pushed himself upright despite protests from damaged muscles. How far to Treaty Station? 3 hours, 16 minutes. Lysandra's voice through intercom carried stress and determination. No pursuit yet, but Draxus will have called favors. Expect intercept attempts. The cockpit was cramped space designed for single pilot operation. Lysandra had made it work, violet hands dancing across controls with practiced confidence. Nova lay strapped in co-pilot seats, still unconscious, but breathing steadily. The view screen showed their trajectory, glowing line cutting toward neutral territory where truth could become weapon. Marcus slid into navigator station, pulled up tactical displays. 6 contacts appeared at sensor range edge, moving to intercept. Drive signatures matched Shadow Council corvettes. Fast-armed, perfectly positioned. We have company. Marcus highlighted contacts. Military vessels, probably the ones Draxus keeps on retainer. Can we outrun them? Dr. Varen asked from medical bay entrance. Lysandra checked quantum drive efficiency, shook her head. Not all 6, 2 or 3 maybe. The rest will catch us. Then we fight. Marcus pulled up courier ship defensive capabilities, found them optimized for running rather than combat. 2 plasma turrets, minimal shields, point defense lasers. We're outgunned but small and fast. Use that. Against 6 corvettes. Lysandra's tone suggested odds didn't favor survival. We need miracle. We need distraction. Marcus turned to face her. How many ships did Nova call 200, you said? Where are they now? Converging on Nexus 7 from 40 systems. Lysandra pulled up fleet display 200 markers creeping across galaxy. Fastest units arrive in 18 hours. We'll be dead in 3, but they're monitoring emergency channels. What if Nova calls again? She's unconscious. The first beacon nearly killed her. Another transmission would definitely kill her. Then I call them. Marcus pulled Hayes' data chip from Pocket's 7-year-old technology worn smooth by carrying. This chip has Ranger emergency codes from Titan Moon. Some were joint operations with Veyron forces during colonial wars. If your fleet still uses old frequencies, they'll recognize legitimate distress signal. From 7 years ago, Lysandra's doubt was reasonable, but Marcus heard hope underneath. From the man their princess led her mother to find. Marcus met Violet gaze. From Emma's father asking help saving another child. The chip slotted into communications array with resistance that spoke of outdated interfaces, but Dr. Varen's engineering bridged gaps. Marcus recorded directly, no time for polish, just truth delivered in voice of father and soldier who'd run out of options. This is Marcus Cole, formerly 75th Rangers. I'm transmitting on Titan Moon Joint Operation frequencies. Princess Nova called you home 18 hours ago. Right now, she's unconscious on stolen courier ship, running from Shadow Council forces that poisoned her and murdered my daughter 3 years ago. We're carrying evidence that proves everything. Crimson Fever Project. Starfall 50,000 dead American children as test subjects for weapons of mass genocide. We need to reach Treaty Station in 3 hours. 6 corvettes hunting us. We can't win this alone. If you're close, if you're listening, if Emma's sacrifice and Nova's courage mean anything, we need you now. The message broadcast across Veyron frequencies, bouncing through relay stations reaching toward 200 warships. 2 minutes passed in silence. Corvettes close-distance weapons coming online. Lysandra prepared evasive maneuvers that might buy seconds before overwhelming firepower turned them into debris. Then communications array lit up with incoming transmission audio. Only voice-carrying authority wrapped in warmth. Marcus Cole, this is Captain Theron Veyron cruiser Crimson Dawn. We're not part of the 200 ships converging on Nexus 7. My crew was already hiding in Nevada asteroid belt when the Princess called. We've been running silent for 3 years waiting. 40,000 kilometers off your port side. Coming in hot. Marcus keyed transmitter. Captain, we need cover for 3 hours. Can you provide negative coal? But I can provide 2 hours 57 minutes, which should be close enough. Theron's confidence spoke of someone who'd fought longer odds. Crimson Dawn is warship. Those corvettes are privateers. They'll run when they see what I'm bringing. What are you bringing? Lysandra asked, hope creeping into voice. Entire Veyron Third Fleet, ma'am. 14 warships hiding in Nevada asteroid belt waiting for Princess's call. We're 3 minutes out, maximum velocity. Tell my princess we're coming home. Nova stirred in co-pilot seat, small blue eyelids fluttering, consciousness returning at sound of her people's voices. She turned toward Marcus with vast dark eyes holding too much wisdom for 4 years. I knew Emma would send help. She promised. The corvettes detected Theron's approach. In their formation, scattered 6 ships suddenly facing 14 Veyron warships materializing from quantum jumps. Heavy cruisers and fast destroyers built for war, crewed by people who'd spent 3 years in exile waiting for this moment. The privateers ran drive signatures flaring hot as they retreated. Accepting this contract wasn't worth suicide. Crimson Dawn took escort position alongside courier ship, massive bulk dwarfing, smaller vessel weapons, tracking potential threats, while Captain maintained running commentary. You've got quite story, Cole. My communications officer is decrypting your data chip now. What she's finding makes her physically ill. It should. Marcus watched tactical displays show their safe corridor expanding. 50,000 dead children make genocide not statistics. The Veyron Third Fleet formed protective formation warships that had been scattered across American space stations in mining operations, coming together like scattered pieces of broken sword reforging itself. Veterans who'd fled during Exodus, who'd hidden among humans and aliens while waiting for call that would let them be soldiers again. Now they flew in perfect formation, protecting stolen courier ship carrying evidence that would topple empires. Treaty Station appeared on sensors 90 minutes later. Massive rotating habitat belonging to no single government, maintained by Galactic consensus as neutral ground. Its communication arrays broadcast across 50 worlds, open channels protected by treaties older than most governments. Once they reached its borders, even Shadow Council couldn't stop truth from spreading. But 2 hours remained and Draxus wasn't finished. The attack came from unexpected vectors. Not corvettes, but missiles, hundreds of them, launched from stealth platforms hidden in approach corridor. Self-guided munitions with quantum targeting and fusion warheads, the kind that cost millions per unit and existed to overwhelm point defense through numbers. Shadow Council was willing to destroy entire diplomatic station to prevent evidence from broadcasting. Crimson Dawn's defensive batteries opened instantly. Pulse lasers and plasma cannons, filling space with intersecting fire destroying missiles by dozens. Other Veyron ships added firepower, creating defensive sphere year-round courier ship. But hundreds became dozens, became several, that slipped through proximity, alerts screaming as fusion warheads closed. Lysandra threw courier ship into evasive maneuvers that would tear larger vessel apart, vector changes, crushing everyone against acceleration couches. She flew like someone racing death and refusing to lose, threading between explosions that turned nearby space into temporary suns. One missile penetrated defensive screen tracking courier ship with machine intelligence predicting evasion patterns. Crimson Dawn tried to intercept, but angle was wrong. Missile too fast, detonation imminent. Marcus watched it close on tactical, watched warhead arm, watched death approaching at relativistic speed. Then Princess Nova raised small blue hand toward viewport crystal pendant, glowing against chest, and spoke single word in musical language of House Veyron. Stop. The missile's guidance failed. Navigation went dead. Propulsion cut out. The warhead that should have vaporized them drifted past inert, every electronic component simultaneously ceasing function, as if 4-year-old child's command carried more authority than military engineering. What did she just do? Marcus heard his own voice asking. Veyron royal bloodline carries quantum resonance. Lysandra's voice shook. Ancient genetic modification from before Exodus. Nova has more than I do. She can disrupt electronic systems with focused will. It nearly kills her every time. Nova collapsed back into seat unconscious again, having burned everything she'd recovered to save them once more. Dr. Varen rushed from medical bay scanner in hand, monitoring vitals fluctuating between stable and critical. She needs hospitalization. Real medical care. 40 minutes to Treaty Station, Lysandra announced, ship still burning hard. Hold on, baby. 40 more minutes. Remaining missiles fell to Veyron defensive fire stealth platforms destroyed by warships that knew these vectors and had spent hours mapping potential ambush points. The attack had been Shadow Council's last desperate gambit, and it had failed. Treaty Station grew in view screen, massive ring habitat, rotating to generate gravity, communication arrays bristling from hub like technological crown. Ships from 40 worlds filled approach corridor, diplomats and merchants and travelers who had no idea they were about to witness history. Marcus pulled Hayes' data chip from communications array. This goes public moment we dock. Every news network, every government database, every public forum. No delays, no verification, just raw data dump before Shadow Council can organize suppression. They'll claim it's falsified, Dr. Varen noted. Propaganda from Veyron separatists. Let them claim what they want. Marcus's voice carried finality of someone who'd walked through fire. 50,000 American families will recognize their children's names. Evidence includes financial records, communications orders signed by people who thought they were untouchable. Truth doesn't need defense, just distribution. Lysandra brought courier ship into Treaty Station docking pattern, following approach vectors, while hands shook on controls. One docking controller challenged their authorization. This is Queen Lysandra of House Veyron. I'm requesting emergency sanctuary under diplomatic protection protocols. I'm carrying evidence of genocide that will be broadcast immediately upon docking. Any attempt to prevent this will be considered act of war. The channel exploded with confused voices, but Treaty Station's core AI processed request and granted emergency clearance. Docking Bay 12 Diplomatic Section, full protection under Galactic law. The courier ship settled onto cradle with mechanical precision. Marcus stood on legs barely supporting his weight, shoulders still screaming, despite nanite healing, and prepared to face whatever awaited. What awaited was chaos organized by protocol. Treaty station security in neutral uniforms. Medical teams with emergency equipment. News crews from dozen networks, cameras recording everything. And standing at center, a human woman in formal diplomatic attire. Ambassador Patricia Chen, United States Representative to Galactic Senate. Staff Sergeant Cole. She used his rank rather than current status. I received your service record 20 minutes ago along with data packet claiming genocide against American citizens. I'm here to receive that evidence. Appropriate authorities tried to kill us 3 times in 4 hours. Marcus was too tired for diplomatic niceties. I'm uploading this to every public network simultaneously. Chen's expression hardened, then cracked into respect. Understood. My office will assist with distribution and verification. For what it's worth, Sergeant, if this is real, you've just ended some very powerful careers. Good. Marcus pulled Hayes' data chip final time, handed it to Dr. Varon, who interfaced with Treaty Station's array. Let's make sure those careers end in prison instead of retirement. The upload began 7 years of encrypted evidence flowing into Treaty Station's networks and cascading across galaxy at light speed and faster. Project Starfall targeting data. Financial records showing weapons contracts worth trillions. Communications between Shadow Council members discussing acceptable casualties and profit margins. Video confessions from designers who thought testimony would remain classified forever. And in center of it all, 50,000 names. Children who died in Crimson Fever pandemic, each documented with photos and medical records and deliberate exposure protocols that had murdered them for data gathering. Emma Rose Cole, age 7, Austin, Texas, patient 0, deliberate infection via daycare ventilation. Result deceased day 14. Acceptable loss for weapons development. Marcus watched his daughter's file broadcast across galaxy, watched gap-toothed smile appear on screens in 50 capitals and 1,000 newsrooms and millions of homes where parents would see Emma and remember their own children. Truth went viral in minutes, geometric progression of sharing and outrage that no suppression could contain. Medical teams had reached Nova, stabilizing small blue princess who'd sacrificed everything. Lysandra stood over daughter like Guardian and Queen Violet, features showing exhaustion that came from surviving when death seemed certain. Varon coordinated with staff, ensuring Nova received care beyond basic stabilization. Marcus felt hands guiding him toward Gurney, heard voices insisting he needed surgery, but he couldn't move yet because screens were updating with responses. Galactic Senate calling emergency session. 12 worlds issuing arrest warrants. United States President appearing before cameras to announce independent investigation and promise justice. It was working. Truth was working. Ambassador Chen appeared at his side. Your daughter Emma, she was beautiful. I'm so sorry. They didn't just take her. Marcus's voice cracked. They murdered her, used her like laboratory equipment, then covered it up and prepared to do it again to billions. Not anymore. Chen's hand rested briefly on Good's shoulder. Because of you, because of Emma, because of 4-year-old alien princess and queen who kept deathbed promise, this ends today. Across docking bay, Lysandra lifted Nova from medical gurney despite staff protests, carried daughter toward Marcus with determined stride. She stopped arm's length away, violet eyes meeting brown ones. Emma told me to find you, to help you remember love. I think perhaps she meant for us to help each other. Nova stirred in mother's arms, open dark eyes that had witnessed too much reached toward Marcus with small blue hand. He took it gently, felt fingers wrap around his thumb. Daddy Marcus, Emma says you're home now. Tears came then, 3 years of grief, finding release. When Lysandra wrapped a free arm around him, he didn't resist. They stood like that in middle of Treaty Station's diplomatic bay, surrounded by cameras and witnesses in weight of galactic consequence. And for first time since Emma died, Marcus felt like he could breathe without drowning. Medical staff insisted on separating them eventually. But as they wheeled Marcus toward operating theater, he heard Lysandra's voice calling. When you wake up, we need to talk about what comes next. About healing centers and teaching people to make love taste real. About Emma's legacy and Nova's future. About us. Looking forward to it, Your Majesty. Just Lysandra. She corrected one more time, and Violet's smile was last thing he saw before unconsciousness took him. 3 days passed in recovery. Marcus's shoulder rebuilt with technology that seemed like magic. Neural pathways reconnected, tissue regenerated to point where he could move without pain. Nova occupied medical bed beside his small blue form, monitored by equipment, beeping reassurance while she slept away, exhaustion of saving Galaxy. News feeds played constantly. Shadow Council members arrested in coordinated raids across 12 worlds. Weapons facilities shut down, financial assets, frozen corporate executives facing tribunals for crimes against humanity and dozen alien equivalents. Crimson Fever investigation expanded to include every pharmaceutical company that had profited, every government that had accepted their narrative without questioning. And through it all, Emma's photograph appeared again and again, gap-toothed smile, becoming face of 50,000 innocent child whose murder had been calculated, genocide disguised as research. Marcus woke on fourth day to find Lysandra sitting beside his bed, Violet features showing exhaustion that came from 3 days testifying before Galactic Senate and United Nations in every investigative body. She'd been formally recognized as Queen of Veyron people in exile, granted diplomatic status and resources to begin rebuilding. But she sat in his recovery room holding his hand while he surfaced from dreams. The Senate voted unanimously. She told him satisfaction in voice. The Emma Cole Memorial Act, funding for healing centers on 50 worlds dedicated to helping children and families recover from trauma. They want you to direct the program. I'm Janitor, who used to be soldier. Marcus's protest was reflexive. I don't know how to run galactic social programs. You know how to make love taste real. Lysandra's smile transcended species barriers. You know what children need when everything else fails. Administrative details can be delegated. And Nova recovering faster than you. Lysandra gestured toward next bed, where Nova slept, blue skin, returning to healthy vibrancy. She asks for you every time she wakes. Wants to know if Daddy Marcus is okay, if he'll teach her to make milk with honey, if Emma would be proud. Emma would be incredibly proud. Marcus felt weight of daughter's absence, but for first time it felt like memorial rather than open wound. She brought us together. Saved billions by leading you to me. That's legacy worth carrying. Lysandra leaned closer, features serious. The Veyron Armada arrived at Nexus 7 yesterday. All 200 ships. They're asking for orders, waiting to know if their queen commands war or peace. What did you tell them that I need to discuss with my advisor? Lysandra's hand tightened on his. With man, my daughter calls father, and who Emma trusted enough to send across galaxy. Marcus Cole, will you help me build something better than what we lost? Help me make sure no more Emmas die for profit. Answer was yes. Before she finished asking, had been yes, since Emma whispered about purple angels with last breaths. But Marcus took time to say it properly, meeting Lysandra's cosmic eyes with certainty from surviving when death seemed guaranteed. On one condition. You let me do it as who I am now, not who I was. Not Staff Sergeant Cole the Ghost. Just Marcus, who makes warm milk and remembers his daughter taught him love transcends species and distance and death. Deal. Lysandra kissed him, then gentle and certain. When Nova woke 30 seconds later and made delighted sounds about Mama kissing Daddy Marcus, they laughed instead of pulling apart. The galaxy spent 6 months processing Shadow Council trials, justice grinding through bureaucratic channels with frustrating slowness. But Draxus turned state's evidence, provided testimony implicating hundreds more, and accepted life in prison, serving as security chief for First Emma's Hope Healing Center instead of execution. Chief Morrison and his veterans were decorated, honored, immediately recruited to help establish similar centers across 40 worlds. Captain Theron and Veyron Third Fleet became nucleus of new peacekeeping force warships repurposed for humanitarian operations, carrying supplies and medical teams, and message that exile had ended and rebuilding could begin. And Marcus, Lysandra, and Nova became face of Emma's hope. Unlikely family proving love needed no translation, and healing began with simple gestures. They traveled to 12 worlds in those first months, teaching parents to make bottles with intention, showing survivors that trauma could be honored without defining every future moment, building networks of care reaching across species barriers. On Emma's 4th anniversary, they gathered at Houston Memorial Hospital, Ward 7, where it all began. Memorial stood there now, white stone carved with 50,000 names, Emma Rose Cole, at top in letters catching Texas sunlight. Families came from across continent, parents holding children who'd never met victims, but understood lost veterans standing silent honor guard for fallen. Marcus stood before Emma's name with Nova on his shoulders and Lysandra's hand in his, speaking to assembled crowd about what his daughter had taught him. Emma promised me it would taste like home. Voice carried across memorial grounds. She led Queen across galaxy to find broken Janitor because she knew love didn't end with death. She saved billions by saving one princess, changed everything by caring about what mattered when machines failed. That's what we teach at Emma's Hope. Not therapy techniques or medical protocols, though those matter. We teach that sometimes healing tastes like warm milk and honey. Sometimes it looks like stranger keeping promises a child they never met. Sometimes it means believing your worst day doesn't define your future. Nova spoke then, 5 years old now, voice carrying same ancient wisdom wrapped in childhood innocence. Emma's in the stars now, she watches us. She's happy we're family. The ceremony ended with 50,000 candles lit simultaneously, one for each child, flames burning bright against encroaching dusk. Marcus whispered words he'd say every day for rest of his life. I kept your promise, sweetheart. I found Purple Angel. I helped her, and I remembered how to love again. Thank you for showing me way home. Stars appeared overhead, distant suns that would host Emma's Hope Centers within a year. Somewhere among them, Marcus imagined his daughter, smiling that gap-toothed smile, proud of what her death had built, satisfied that love had proven stronger than genocide. The Veron Armada had transformed from war fleet into construction force, 200 warships now building hospitals and schools across worlds ravaged by Shadow Council's profiteering. Admiral Talon, Lysandra's uncle, commanded operations with efficiency that turned destruction into creation, weapons into tools, soldiers into builders. Marcus stood on observation deck of Emma's Hope Primary Center 3 months after Houston Memorial, watching construction drones assemble new facility in Mars orbit. The center would serve 50,000 refugees from a dozen worlds, children who'd lost parents to war, and parents who'd lost children to corporate greed, all coming together to learn that healing was possible when someone cared enough to make it real. Lysandra joined him at Viewport, her presence still sending electric current through his nervous system, despite 6 months of partnership. Nova was in education wing, learning Veyron history from elders who'd survived Exodus, small blue princess, studying pastas so she could build better future. Deveron just sent report from Titan Moon Center. Lysandra's voice carried satisfaction. 300 families enrolled in first month. Former soldiers teaching trauma recovery to war orphans. It's working, Marcus. Emma's vision is spreading. Because it's simple. Marcus kept his eyes on construction happening outside. Love doesn't require complicated infrastructure or sophisticated technology. Just someone willing to show up and care. That's what Emma understood at 7 years old that took me 33 years to learn. She was wise beyond her years. Lysandra's hand found his. Like Nova. Like all children before war and loss teach them to be hard. We can't prevent all war and loss. Marcus turned to face her violet features, beautiful in starlight filtering through Viewport. But we can teach people how to recover, how to take broken pieces and build something new, instead of letting grief define every moment. Is that what we're doing, building something new? The question carried weight beyond healing centers and galactic programs. Marcus understood she was asking about them, about the family they'd become, about whether two people from different worlds could build life together when circumstances had thrown them together rather than choice. He pulled her closer, felt her violet warmth against him, and spoke truth that had been growing since that moment in Medical Bay when she'd first looked at him with recognition. Emma told you to find me because she knew we'd both need saving. Not just you from grief over Nova, not just me from drowning in loss, both of us from belief that love was something you lost and never found again. So yes, Lysandra, we're building something new. We're building family. We're building home. And we're doing it in a way that honors every child who didn't get to build their own. She kissed him, then deep and certain, and when they broke apart, there were tears on violet cheeks that caught starlight like diamonds. Nova's voice interrupted from doorway, small blue princess carrying datapad twice her size. Daddy Marcus, Mama, the Earth delegation is here. They want to talk about establishing center in every American state. Marcus and Lysandra exchanged glances that spoke volumes about how their lives had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been janitor making milk for ghosts. She'd been queen in exile watching her daughter die. Now they were directors of Galactic Healing Initiative, parents to Princess, who'd called Armada home partners, building legacy that would outlive them both. Let's go meet them. Marcus took Nova's small blue hand. Show them what Emma started. The delegation from Earth occupied main conference room, 12 representatives from different states and federal government, all looking somewhat overwhelmed by being on space station, negotiating with Alien Queen and former Army Ranger about establishing trauma centers. Ambassador Chen was there too, having made Emma's hope her personal mission after witnessing truth's power at Treaty Station. Marcus let Lysandra handle most of talking, her royal training, and diplomatic skills far exceeding his comfort with bureaucracy. But when discussion turned to actual implementation, when representatives started talking about funding models and administrative overhead and all the ways large organizations made simple things complicated, he found his voice. With respect, ambassador governors, senators. Marcus stood aware of 12 sets of eyes turning toward him. Emma's hope doesn't work because of sophisticated administrative structure. It works because of people like Chief Morrison and Captain Theron and Dr. Varon, who decided that caring about kids mattered more than following standard procedures. You want to establish centers in every state. Find people who remember why they got into public service. Find veterans who know trauma firsthand. Find parents who've lost children and want to prevent other families from experiencing same grief. Give them resources and get out of their way. One senator, older man with military bearing and Texas accent, stood. Staff Sergeant Colmore served with 75th Rangers in Afghanistan back in 2015. Different war, same fight. I lost my son to crimson fever. He was 6. Name was Jake. Marcus felt the connection, the recognition of shared loss and shared understanding. I'm sorry for your loss, Senator. Jake deserved better. They all did. The senator's voice cracked. 50,000 American kids murdered, so corporations could test weapons. And you stopped it. You and your family stopped it. So when you say give resources and get out a way, you have my vote. Whatever Emma's hope needs, Texas will provide. Other representatives nodded, some wiping eyes, all processing that this wasn't abstract policy discussion, but personal mission to prevent future tragedies. Ambassador Chen stood formal, diplomat, giving way to human being who'd witnessed horror and wanted to fix it. Proposal is simple, she addressed the room. Every state establishes minimum 3 Emma's Hope Centers within 2 years. Federal government provides 70%, funding states provide 30%. Centers operate autonomously with oversight from Marcus Cole and Queen Lysandra. Veterans get hiring preference. Families who've experienced trauma get free services. No means testing, no bureaucracy, just help for people who need it. The vote was unanimous. As delegation filed out, the Texas senator approached Marcus privately. My son Jake, he said quietly, used to love warm milk with honey. His mother made it for him every night. After he died, she couldn't stop making it. Just like you with Emma. We thought we were going crazy. You weren't crazy. Marcus met the older man's eyes. You were remembering love. That's what Emma's hope teaches. Love doesn't end with death. It transforms, changes shape, becomes something that helps others instead of just hurting. The senator pulled out photograph, young boy with bright smile. This is Jake. He would have been 10 now. I want his picture in every Texas center, alongside Emma's, so people remember why we do this. Marcus took the photo, studied the child's face, felt the weight of 50,000 lives stolen. Emma won't be alone in those centers. Jake and all the others, they'll all be remembered. Every single one. 6 months became a year. 50 centers became 500. Emma's hope expanded beyond American space to include Varan worlds being rebuilt to neutral stations where refugees gathered to colonies on frontier where resources were scarce but need was overwhelming. The message spread: healing was possible, love transcended species, and simple gestures mattered more than sophisticated technology. Marcus found himself becoming something he'd never imagined. Not just director but teacher, not just administrator but mentor. Veterans sought him out, former soldiers struggling with transition from combat to civilian life, looking for mission that mattered. He taught them what Emma had taught him, that strength wasn't about fighting, but about showing up for people who needed someone to care. Lysandra transformed from queen in exile to diplomat, building bridges between worlds that had been enemies. Her people's suffering gave her credibility with other refugees. Her partnership with Marcus proved that former enemies could become family. Her daughter's courage inspired children across galaxy to believe in better future. And Nova grew into role of princess with wisdom that belied her 5 years. She traveled with her parents to new center openings, speaking to children who'd lost everything, sharing her own story of being poisoned and saved, and learning that love tasted like honey and felt like home. Adults listened because she was royalty, but children listened because she understood their fear. Draxus served his sentence without complaint, working as security chief at Houston Memorial Center, where it all began, protecting children he'd once tried to kill. Marcus visited him monthly, these two men, who'd been enemies, finding common ground in regret and redemption. They never became friends, but they became something else, two soldiers recognizing that serving something larger than yourself was the only path back from darkness. Chief Morrison died in his sleep 18 months after Treaty Station Heart, giving out peacefully after 70 years of service. His funeral drew thousands of veterans from 6 wars, children from 30 centers, colleagues who'd watched him choose courage over comfort. Marcus spoke at memorial, voice breaking, as he described the man who'd saved them when saving seemed impossible. Chief Morrison taught me that age doesn't determine capacity for heroism. At 68, when most men are retired and content, he chose to fight one more battle because children needed protecting. Emma would have loved him. Jake would have looked up to him. All 50,000 would have called him hero. And they'd be right. Captain Theron and the Veyron Third Fleet continued their peacekeeping operations. These warriors, finding that building was harder than destroying, but infinitely more satisfying. They transported supplies, provided security for reconstruction, trained local forces in defense without aggression. Theron visited Primary Center quarterly to report progress and received new assignments, always bringing gifts from distant worlds for Princess Nova. "You promised to protect her," Marcus told Theron during one visit. "You've protected more than just her. You've protected hope itself." The captain's violet features showed emotion that soldiers rarely displayed. "Emma saved us, Cole. Princess Nova called us home. You showed us what home means. We're just paying forward what you gave us." Devar Varen split his time between medical research and teaching. His expertise in xenobiology, combined with new understanding of emotional healing, creating field of study that hadn't existed before. He published papers on connection between physical health and emotional well-being, on how isolation killed as surely as disease, on why warm milk with honey worked where sophisticated medications failed. "It's not about the milk," he explained to medical conference on Mars, Marcus in attendance. "It's about intention, about human or alien making choice to care, about taking time to make something with own hands instead of letting machines do it." That's what Sergeant Cole understood when rest of us were focused on cellular biology. Love is medicine too. The research transformed medical practice across 40 worlds, doctors learning that technology augmented healing but couldn't replace human connection. Hospitals installed kitchens where family members could prepare food for patients. Trauma centers trained staff in simple rituals that created safety. Mental health facilities taught people to make bottles of milk and honey not for nutrition, but for meaning. Emma's hope became Emma's movement, grassroots change that spread faster than any government program because it resonated with fundamental truth. People needed people. Love mattered. Simple gestures changed lives. And through it all, Marcus and Lysandra built life together that honored past while creating future. They married in simple ceremony at Houston Memorial, exchanging vows before Memorial Wall, listing 50,000 names, promising to love and protect and remember always. Nova served as flower girl, scattering Texas bluebells down the aisle, while 700 witnesses watched two people from different worlds become family. Their wedding photo appeared in news feeds across galaxy. Violet Queen and gray-shirted Janitor standing hand in hand, small blue princess between them, all three smiling at camera with genuine joy. Caption read, "Love needs no translation." They moved into quarters on Primary Center, modest apartment overlooking Earth, decorated with Emma's photographs and Veyron artifacts, and Nova's drawings, and all the accumulated evidence of life being lived fully. Marcus still made warm milk with honey every morning, but now he made 3 bottles, one for each member of his new family ritual that had been grief transformed into celebration. Lysandra learned to love Texas food, discovered that barbecue and Veyron spice blends created flavor profiles that shouldn't work but did. Marcus learned vagrant history, studied the royal family that had ruled for centuries before war destroyed everything, understood the weight Lysandra carried as last of her line. Nova learned both human and Veyron customs, switching between languages and cultures with 5-year-old ease that gave her parents hope for a future where differences enhanced rather than divided. She called Marcus Daddy and Lysandra Mama, and herself Princess Nova Cole Veyron, names spanning 3 worlds and 2 species and one unbreakable family. On Emma's 5th anniversary, they returned to Houston a memorial for annual ceremony that had become tradition. 100,000 people attended, now families from across Earth and beyond, coming to remember 50,000 children and celebrate movement those deaths had inspired. Marcus stood before a memorial wall with his family, older now at 38, but carrying grief transformed into purpose. Nova was 6 years old. Lysandra's violet beauty had lines around eyes that spoke of laughter and leadership, and together they represented possibility that hadn't existed 5 years ago. 5 years ago today, Marcus spoke to assembled crowd, his voice carrying across memorial grounds. Through amplification, my daughter Emma died in my arms. She was 7 years old. She loved warm milk with honey. She made me promise to find Purple Angel and help her. I thought she was delirious. I thought I'd never understand what she meant. He paused, looked at Lysandra, and Nova felt their presence anchoring him. But Emma wasn't delirious. She was prophetic. She knew that Queen Lysandra would search for me. She knew that Princess Nova would need saving. She knew that love was bigger than one family, one world, one species. And she knew that her death could mean something if we chose to make it meaningful. Today, 50,000 Emma's Hope Centers operate across 70 worlds. 5 million families have received services. 100,000 volunteers donate time and expertise. Billions of credits flow into healing infrastructure. But that's not Emma's legacy. Marcus gestured at the crowd, at the diversity of species and cultures gathered to remember human children. Emma's legacy is this: is us. Is the choice we make every day to care about strangers' children as much as we cared about our own. Is the understanding that grief can destroy or grief can create, and we choose which. My daughter tasted love in warm milk with honey. Your children taste it in whatever rituals bring them comfort. Emma taught me that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering in ways that help us move forward instead of staying frozen in moment of loss. So today, on 5th anniversary of greatest loss and beginning of greatest purpose, I want to thank Emma. Thank her for being brave enough to ask her father to promise something impossible. Thank her for trusting that Purple Angel would keep promises to dying 7-year-old. Thank her for showing us that love doesn't end with death. It transforms. It grows. It saves entire galaxy if we let it. The crowd stood in silence, 50,000 candles flickering in dusk, stars beginning to appear overhead. Nova stepped forward, placed single Texas bluebell at base of memorial wall, her small blue hand touching Emma's name carved in stone. Thank you, Emma. You gave me Daddy Marcus and taught Mama how to hope again. I wish I could have met you, but I feel like I know you because you're in everything we do. Lysandra added her own flower violet bloom from reconstructed Veyron homeworld. You kept your promise, brave one. You led me to Marcus. You saved Nova. You changed everything. Rest well knowing your life mattered more than you could have imagined. Marcus placed final flower photograph of Emma tucked beneath it, his daughter's gap-toothed smile captured forever in image, worn soft from 5 years of caring. I kept my promise, sweetheart. I found Purple Angel. I helped her. I learned to love again. And every single day I make sure other people learn the same. You're my North Star, Emma. Always have been. Always will be. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence that stretched into minutes, 100,000 people standing together in shared remembrance and shared commitment. As darkness fell completely and stars blazed overhead, the crowd began to sing. Not planned, not organized, just spontaneous expression of emotion too large for words alone. The melody was simple, the lyrics improvised, but the message clear. We remember. We honor. We choose love over hate, healing over hurting, building over destroying. Marcus stood with his family, tears flowing freely, and felt Emma's presence as surely as he felt Lysandra's hand in his and Nova's arms around his waist. His daughter was gone, but not forgotten, dead, but not diminished, transformed from child, he'd held into force that changed galaxy. That night, back in their quarters on Primary Center, Marcus made 3 bottles of warm milk with honey. Nova drank hers while Lysandra told Veron bedtime stories. Marcus sipped his slowly tasting memory and hope in equal measure. Before Nova fell asleep, she asked a question she'd asked 100 times before. Daddy Marcus, do you think Emma knows how much we love her? Marcus tucked blanket around his blue princess, kissed her forehead. I think Emma knew before she died. That's why she sent us to each other. She knew we'd build family that honored her memory. And we did, Nova said with 6-year-old certainty. We made love taste like home. Yes, sweetheart, we did. After Nova slept, Marcus and Lysandra stood at viewport watching Earth rotate below this planet that had given birth to humanity and to Emma and to movement that would outlive them all. Somewhere in Texas, centers bearing Emma's name helped families recover from trauma. Somewhere in Veron space, reconstruction continued on worlds Shadow Council had tried to destroy. Somewhere across galaxy, children slept safely because 3 people had chosen courage over despair. Do you think we've done enough? Lysandra asked quietly. To honor Emma's memory. Marcus pulled her close, felt her warmth against him. Emma didn't ask me to save Galaxy. She just asked me to find you and help you. Everything else, all these centers and programs and changes, those happen because we chose to make her death mean something beyond grief. But have we done enough? We'll never be done. Marcus kissed her violet forehead. That's the point. Healing isn't destination. It's continuous choice to show up for people who need someone to care. As long as there are children hurting and families grieving and people who think they're too broken to recover, we'll have work to do. Then we'd better get some sleep. Lysandra smiled, exhaustion and satisfaction mixing. Tomorrow we open new center on Titan Moon, Hayes' memorial. Marcus felt old mentor's presence, 7 years dead but never forgotten. Hayes would approve. He gave his life trying to stop Shadow Council. Now we're building healing centers where he died. That's how we honor the fallen, by making sure their sacrifice meant something. They went to bed holding each other, 2 people from different worlds who'd found home in each other's arms. Outside their window, stars wheeled overhead, infinite points of light in endless darkness. But the darkness wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with hope and healing and love that transcended species and distance and death itself. In her room down the hall, Princess Nova slept with smile on blue face, dreaming of sister she'd never met but knew intimately through stories and photographs and legacy that touched everything. In the dream, Emma smiled her gap-toothed smile and said 5 words that made everything worthwhile. You kept your promise, Daddy. And he had. They all had, whatever it cost.